Every journey has a first step, and for me, this is step number 1. Welcome to the very first episode of the Jason Owens podcast. This is specifically meant for people who have a message that they want to package and sell over and over again. If you are an author or a public speaker, you are in the right place to grow your platform and grow your voice. In this episode, we're going to talk about what you can expect by being a listener to this podcast, and we're going to talk about a case study of work that I'm doing right now on list building. These techniques are working in our community right now as I speak, so I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you. So let's talk about what you can expect. Now, in a podcast, it typically has one of maybe 3 or 4 different formats. One of those formats is what's called the solo hosted show, right? So it's just one person there who's just kind of riffing on whatever their soapbox happens to be, right? They might be an expert on some topic and they're going to talk about that topic, or maybe talk about several different topics throughout the episodes, but usually it's just one person. Now, a second format is called the interview format. Okay, usually what happens there is that the podcast host is borrowing the expertise and, quite frankly, borrowing the audience of the person who is attending that particular podcast show, right? The person who is there to be interviewed. So in that format, of course, you guys all know what an interview format is, right? Pretty straightforward. You have Q&A and a little bit of back and forth there. So that's the interview format. And the last format is called the co-hosted show, right? So you're going to have 2 hosts on there. And again, these 2 are going to riff back and forth on some comment, some topic that is prevalent of the day. So again, co-hosted format. And then the last format, my most favorite format, is what's called the multi-format, right? So you can end up doing a little bit of each. Now, from what I've been told, it is important to remain consistent. To expect there. I would say most of the shows that I do are probably going to end up being the solo hosted variety. Now, I will certainly mix in some interviews, okay? And I'll tell you a little bit more about that here in a minute. And I will certainly mix in the co-hosted format. So as my network here in the area continues to develop and I continue to get a lot better at having people on by Skype for a co-hosted show, then we'll, of course, begin to mix that in. So, but again, like I said at the beginning, every journey has a first step. So this is step number 1. So anyway, with that in mind, I have a little bit of a backstory here. So even though I'm saying this is step number 1, I want you to grab a hold of a really important lesson here that I'm pulling out today. And that lesson is about making a first step, doing some kind of start, taking some kind of action on a project that you want to do. Now, what I have found when I have interviewed people in this area, this author, expert, the guru space, let's call it, when I have interviewed people before and talked with them, whether it's over a cup of coffee or maybe just a face-to-face meeting, I have found pretty consistently that the people who have started on this journey very rarely, if ever, end up going and attaining the goal that they wanted on the very first try, right? It's very important to have forward progress, but I don't want you to get discouraged if you are making some progress and don't really feel like you're getting there. So let me tell you about my story with this very podcast that you're listening to right now. Now, the kicker is I actually started this podcast feed well over a year ago, right? So I'm recording this message right now in November of 2016. When I went back to look at my podcast feed here tonight, I had actually started a podcast and published my first one under a different podcast show name. I had published my first podcast. It was August of 2015 is when I put my first podcast out. And here's the deal. I got really stuck on it. I knew that I wanted to have a podcast and knew that I wanted to take some steps in that area, but man, I took massive action, which is very important, and I got into it, and I quite frankly got really stuck with it. Now, I published the first episode. The other 2 episodes are still sitting here on my hard drive, completely unpublished, never made it out to the podcast feed. And I was just having all kinds of a hard time really making sense of how do I fit this content into my brand, right? How do I take these things that I want to say and how do I work them into my brand? I just hadn't seen a really good example of how that worked for anyone else. So again, I was taking action and I was making forward progress, but it's very common to do this, and it's very common to run into roadblocks. Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I want you to internalize that a bit, because when I see people get discouraged, it's because they have taken steps and they encounter resistance and feel like whether it's a calling issue or maybe they've missed their calling or heard God wrong or whatever words you want to put in there, somehow they're on the wrong path. And I just want you to know, and just take this one example from me, that even though you run into a roadblock, it does not mean you are on the wrong path. Many of the people who are hearing this are going to be, let's face it, people that I know already, right? I'm going to go ahead and launch out this new podcast. I'm going to let people know about it. And really, you're already in my tribe. Most of you already know me. I don't hold out a huge amount of hope that 10,000 people that I don't know are suddenly going to discover this tomorrow. No, this is really going out to people that I know. And of the people I know, I would have to say every last one of them is truly following some kind of call that they feel they have on their lives, right? So I just want you guys to really have your heads up on this, okay? Just be aware that it's totally okay to take some kind of steps down the path and feel like, maybe this isn't working. Maybe, gosh, this doesn't feel right. That's totally fine and totally normal. So stick with it. And if you have any massive questions you want to cover with me, by all means, just pick up the phone and call me, or certainly reach out to me by email. So with that in mind, I want to go ahead and shift gears a bit and talk about the case study that I mentioned I wanted to cover here at the beginning of the podcast. Now, the case study has to do with a list building technique that I'm seeing that is working very, very well. This really came to me, probably about 8 months ago. I was in an Infusionsoft meeting. I was leading the Infusionsoft user group in Charlotte. Now, for the uninitiated here, Infusionsoft is like MailChimp on super steroids, right? It's an email marketing platform. It's kind of the gold standard out there for small businesses. So I'm in that community. I'm leading a user group meeting, and a person that I met through there was telling me that he and his wife were out doing public speaking and whatnot, and the wife is the one who is the center of the tension. She is the one giving the message. She's the one up on stage. And they were using a great technique that really, I thought at first, I'm like, seriously? That's actually working for you? And to find out, yeah, it works great. So here's what they were doing. The lady is going around to different chiropractor offices. She's in the health and wellness field, health and wellness circles, and she's going around to chiropractor offices, and she has a talk that she gives. So the standard format there is that the chiropractor then invites a whole bunch of people in, and you end up with, it's usually, in our world, it's more of a smaller room, right? So you're looking at maybe less than 20 people in this room. And this is at the chiropractor's office, and there may be some slides involved as far as some overheads and whatnot. Usually there's some kind of light hors d'oeuvres that are served. Usually this is in the evening. So she's there doing these talks, and she is at the very tail end. She is saying, hey, listen, if you have liked this talk of mine and you want to learn more from me, or you want more of my content, here's my keyword. And I can't remember what the keyword was. I think it was something like clear skin. Go ahead and text clear skin to 12345, whatever her digits were, and you can stay connected with me and you'll be on my subscriber list. So I'm talking with the husband here, and he said, Jason, we are killing it with this. I said, seriously? Like, what kind of rates are you seeing? Jason, we're seeing over a 40% opt-in rate for every room that we go to. And that blew me away. Seriously? People are taking out their phones while you're standing there 10 feet from them, and they're opting into your list. Yeah, surprised me too, but it's working great. So anyway, I was blown away at that, and I always had that in my head here over the past summer. This summer for me was a bit of a whirlwind. Many of you know that we ended up having to pack up our house and get it all spiffed up, put it on the market, and we ended up moving. We're now here in the thriving metropolis of Percy, Pennsylvania. And we are here temporarily while we get our house sold there in Charlotte. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and land in more of a permanent home. So right now we're kind of in that in-between phase. But so anyway, throughout the summer, I didn't have a whole lot of time to mess with that list building opportunity until I landed here. So I landed here and really over the past probably about 6 or 8 weeks, really got some religion on helping people, helping speakers like you build a list using that exact same technique that I just mentioned to you. So ended up having a few people in my community opt in for this and say, yeah, Jason, I'm interested in that. I do have a couple talks coming up. Go ahead and sign me up for this service that you have and help teach me how to do this, right? Because there's a bit of a script involved, and I'm learning the deeper we get into this. There's certainly some right ways to do it, and maybe some not so right ways to do it. So it's been great, though. It's been great. I can tell you about 2 different people who've used this in particular. One lady who was doing this did that technique, used the join by text, build by text technique, and she did this at a women's conference. And she had a talk that she did, and this women's conference went over a weekend. So it was kind of a Friday night, Saturday morning kind of thing. So between the Friday night and the Saturday morning, this expert, this public speaker, ended up getting a 36% opt-in rate over the course of that event. That's pretty cool. Now, over here on my end, we have everything set up so that I can see all this activity as it happens, right? This person is speaking literally down in Charlotte, and I'm over here hitting refresh on my screen, watching these subscriptions come in, watching the new subscriber notifications come in. So it was really cool, and just loved it. That kind of thing just jazzes me up, because now this person has even more people on her list that now she can reach out to and develop a relationship with, and of course, monetize, right? That's what it all goes back to. So that's the first case study. Second case study that I have is a lady who had an evening talk that she gave. She and her husband were on stage doing this talk together, and frankly, it went really well. It went really well. The talk was dynamite. And at the very tail end, a little scrunched for time there at the tail end, but she still had time to go ahead and put the slide up on the screen. Hey, listen, if you want to have more information from me, if you want to join my list, my subscription, here you go. So she had her keyword and she had her digits and put those up on screen. And even there, packing it in at the very tail end of that talk, still had a 15% opt-in rate, and this room had over 100 people in it, all right? I mean, that's pretty cool. So again, here I am back in Percy, and I'm doing the refresh on my screen, and I'm watching all of these subscriptions come in, and it just jazzes me up to watch that happen. So anyway, lots of great stuff there happening. So hey, listen, this is the kind of thing that I love doing for people, is just helping you find new ways to go out there and build your list, connect with people, and again, monetize. All of you are smart. Every last one of you. I don't know anybody who isn't wicked smart who are listening to this podcast right now. Seriously, in my community, you guys are all really top notch, and you have great content that is inside you. Some of you are pulling that out and putting it on your blog. That's great. Some of you are pulling that out and putting it into products, audio products, DVDs, membership sites. I mean, all of it's great. So I am jazzed up to be working with you and around you, and love watching your growth, watching the list grow, watching revenue grow. It's just a great thing. So with that in mind, everyone, coming up next, I'm going to tell you a little bit. Not a little. We're going to go through a complete and total case study on a flash sale that I am running. Okay, so this flash sale has to do with some of the email marketing work that I do, and I can't wait to share the results with you. Some of the early results are already in, and I'm really jacked up about it. So I'm going to unpack that in depth coming up in episode 2 of this podcast, where, again, my mission is to help you as platform builders, as authors, as public speakers. My mission in life is to help you take your story to one more person. My name is Jason Owens, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care, everybody.